In the timeline of human history, few tragedies compare to the loss of the Great Library of Alexandria. It was not merely the destruction of a building, but the erasure of centuries, perhaps even thousands of years of accumulated wisdom. Philosophers, scientists, physicians, and poets once walked its halls, and with its destruction, much of their brilliance vanished into the smoke, leaving behind only echoes. Some historians believe that the burning of the Library of Alexandria may have delayed the progress of science, medicine, and civilization itself by over 1,000 years. And to understand the significance of this loss, we must first look at the city that gave the library its name, and that is Alexandria. Now, Alexandria was founded in 331 BC by none other than Alexander the Great. Strategically positioned on Egypt's Mediterranean coast, the city quickly became a cultural and intellectual hub of the ancient world. It was a melting pot of Egyptian, Greek, Persian, and then later Roman influences. Following Alexander's death, his empire fragmented, but Alexandria actually thrived. Under the rule of the Ptolemaic dynasty, his Macedonian successors in Egypt, the city transformed into a beacon of learning and inquiry. At the heart of this intellectual explosion was the Library of Alexandria, one of the most ambitious undertakings in human history. Now, the library was more than just a building. It was a concept, a mission to collect all the knowledge of the known world. Greek texts, Egyptian papyri, Babylonian astronomy, Indian mathematics, and Persian philosophy. No civilization's ideas were too foreign. The vision was global. The goal was universal knowledge. The Library of Alexandria was effectively the world's first research institution. Some describe it as the first prototype of a modern university. It featured lecture halls, shared dining spaces for scholars, botanical gardens, reading rooms, a cataloguing department, and even a staff of scribes and librarians. It was a sanctuary of human thought. According to ancient sources, the inscription above these scroll shelves read, "The place of the cure of the soul." Knowledge, in their view, was healing. Ignorance was the disease. In terms of the size, estimates range widely. Some claim the library held over 400,000 scrolls, others believe it housed as many as 700,000. To be clear, each scroll could contain the equivalent of a small modern book or more. That's potentially millions of pages of content: mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature, theology, philosophy, and so much more. Ships docking at Alexandria's port were required by law to surrender any written materials on board. The originals were kept in the library, and the copies were then returned to their owners. This wasn't theft, it was seen as a public service for the eternal preservation of knowledge. So who exactly worked, studied, or taught at the Library of Alexandria? Well, we had Euclid, whose textbook Elements remain one of the most influential works in mathematics. Hipparchus, a pioneering astronomer who created the first star catalogue and discovered the precessions of the equinoxes. Eratosthenes, who remarkably calculated the Earth's circumference with astonishing accuracy within 200 miles using nothing but geometry, shadows, and sunlight. Herophilus, sometimes called the father of anatomy, who identified that the brain, not the heart, was the seat of human consciousness, challenging thousands of years of accepted belief. Aristarchus of Samos, who proposed that the Earth orbits the Sun over 1,800 years before Copernicus. And then there was Hero of Alexandria, also known as Heron of Alexandria, who was the engineer and inventor who devised a steam-powered device called the aeolipile that could spin using heated water vapor. In essence, it was a working steam engine 2,000 years before the Industrial Revolution. And there were many hundreds of more individuals of absolute brilliance that were involved in some way, shape, or form at the Library of Alexandria. Their contributions shaped the foundations of science, yet many of their works have only survived in fragments, if at all. So what exactly happened then at the Library of Alexandria? Now, the destruction of the Library of Alexandria is shrouded in mystery and myth. There is no single definitive account of its destruction. Instead, there are multiple historical events, each potentially contributing to its demise. In 48 BC, during Julius Caesar's military campaign in Egypt, his troops set fire to ships in Alexandria's harbor. The flames reportedly spread to parts of the city, possibly to the library as well. In the 3rd century AD, during Emperor Aurelian's siege of the city, more destruction may have occurred, and in 391 AD, the Christian patriarch Theophilus led the destruction of pagan temples, potentially including the library's remnants as Christianity rose to dominance. Well, it may have been destruction destroyed in phases over centuries by various forces: fire, war, politics, and religious zealotry. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria is so important to mankind because this was more than just a library. It was humanity's memory bank. It held ancient Indian medical and mathematical history, Babylonian astronomical charts, lost works of Greek philosophers, early maps of the world, and possibly forgotten histories of civilization we no longer even recognize or know about. We often hear people whisper about long-lost civilizations, and people often refer to Atlantis. Well, Atlantis, which was mentioned in Plato's Timaeus and Critias, were widely copied and studied in the Hellenistic world. Those works would almost certainly have been in the Library of Alexandria, since it aimed to collect all major Greek works. So the myth of Atlantis would have been present indirectly. Ancient historians like Herodotus, Strabo, and Pausanias wrote about cities destroyed by earthquakes or floods, like Helike in Greece, which sank in 733 BC. Their works also likely existed in the library. The library almost certainly held Mesopotamian, Greek, and Egyptian texts with flood traditions, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, which comes from Sumerian and Babylonian flood narratives, and Greek accounts of Deucalion's flood. These aren't sunken continents, but they do describe lands lost to water. Imagine if we had that information, which was lost during the destruction of the Library of Alexandria. Imagine if modern science had been built upon those ancient foundations 1,000 years earlier. We could have landed on the moon in the 1100s. We could have cured diseases in the Renaissance era. We'll never know, and that's the tragedy. We will never know. So much has been lost. It's such a tragic loss of knowledge, information, and culture from earlier civilizations. Perhaps it's one of the reasons why we're not able to understand so much of our own past and have so many questions that modern science, archaeology, and historians just cannot answer. But I will leave you with one final thought. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria is a symbol. It's a warning. It's a reminder of what can be lost when ignorance triumphs over knowledge, when ideology snuffs out inquiry. As the philosopher Aristotle once said, the fate of empires depends on the education of youth. When you erase the past, you blind the future. And if we don't protect knowledge, and if we don't pass it forward, then we risk repeating the same mistakes again and again. Today, in a world where information is abundant, but attention is scarce, perhaps we should reflect on the value of wisdom once more, because once knowledge is lost, it may never be recovered. I still find it remarkable that if you ask most people the question, have you ever heard of the Library of Alexandria, the chances are most would not have heard of it. And that too is part of the problem. If you found this video interesting, be sure to check out the playlist up next. And it's also linked in the description for more fascinating videos about our mysterious old world.